So this article I found quite interesting. This comes from the Taipei Times, um, and it's 80 years after 1939. Europe's far right censors power again. Last week, as Europe commemorated the 80th anniversary of the outbreak of World War II, the far right Alternative for Germany became the most popular choice for young voters in the East German state of Saxony. Along with a strong performance in local elections the same day in Brandenburg, the results were a reminder of just how dramatically far right political parties have resurrected themselves in modern Europe. Trading off economic frustration and disquiet over migration, they are weaponizing technology and social media and international networks and widespread frustration with the current political status quo. Such parties do not necessarily need outright power to achieve their goals, as shown by the right-wing leader, Italian Deputy Matteo Salvini, where he was the Minister of Interior for turning away migrant rescue ships and arresting one of the captains. However, Italy's example also points to the challenges faced by such groups. After bringing down the government earlier this year, Salvini was widely expected to become the Prime Minister. Instead, he has found himself kept out by an alliance of the more moderate parties. However, the lessons of the 1930s, another era of dissolution and change and paranoia, remain stark. Hitler's Nazis never won more than 1/3 of the votes in a democratic election, but that was enough to give them a stranglehold on power, given the proportional representation based on the German constitution. Some far-right leaders continue to be plagued by scandal and ineptitude. Austria's Freedom Party was forced from government in May after its leader Heinz Christian Starch was filmed in a video sting about how in a video sting known as the Ibiza tapes, promising government contracts to a woman he believed to be a Russian oligarch's niece. Nevertheless, the party looks set for a strong showing in the returning September 29th election. France's far right appears similarly resistant. Having lost to French President-elect Emmanuel Macron in 2017, the presidential elections Marie Le Pen National Front rebranded itself last summer as the National Rally and won the European parliamentary elections this May with a ticket fronted by this 23-year-old Jordan Bardella. Le Pen, whose father founded the party in 1972 and lost a presidential runoff against Jacques Chirac 30 years later, remains firmly in control, with another chance of seizing power and the Elysee Palace of the next opportunity in 2022. The point is that they are going mainstream, said Julia Olber, a research fellow specialising in the far right at the Institute of Strategic Dialogue and the think tank in London. They are playing a very long game and targeting the next generation. As in France, the strategy that has seen the right-wing political parties in Spain, Denmark, and elsewhere field candidates in their late 20s, high on the state, seeing young white male voters in particular as their path to greater power. Figures such as Belgian Deos van Langerhove helped Belgium's right-wing Vlaams Belge, I think that's how you say it, to its best ever showing in simultaneous May regional and national European elections. Yet there are limits to the trend. Even among young men, far-right parties still often struggle to gain much more than 1/3 of the vote. Geographical support remains patchy. As they become more radical, parties can shed moderate followers even as they gain new ones. The Alternative for Germany may be rising in the country's more economically marginalised east, but it appears to be losing support in the richer western areas. Female voters remain particularly sceptical, promoting growing dissolution in right-wing circles over how to win them over. Oh, hang on. You have to excuse me. This website is not suited for mobile reading on a mobile. Van Lokov and Balner are others of an increasingly sophisticated continent-wide movement tying together social media, real-world demonstrations, and rallies, and a single-minded determination to seize political office. The well-resourced campaigns included Generation Identity, a large youth-facing movement that began in France and has seen its popularity grow in Austria, Germany, Italy, and elsewhere. It is a sign of increased coordination, and such movements are perhaps ironic given their often nationalist agendas. Many take expert encouragement from US right-wingers and white supremacists, as well as Russian President Vladimir Putin, as seen by many on the right as what a nationalist leader should be: ruthless, macho, untroubled by principles such as human rights or political correctness. Such groups and their leaders are also the main beneficiaries of suspected Russian hacking, trolling, and other online activity, supporting the suggestion that the Kremlin would like to see a more fragmented but right-wing dominated West. The right messaging, which includes online videos, is widespread, varied, and not all of it branded to associate with the far right. However, behind the talk of the need to confront Islamist fundamentalism and protect women's rights is a wider message. The mass migration and multicultural liberalism are destroying Europe. Only the right can stop it. The right-wing governments in Hungary and Poland shine a light on what the far right might look like in office. The more state media control and rhetoric against not just migrants and foreigners, but other minorities such as the LGBT community. However, many supporters would like to go further. Online discussion of re-immigration includes not just repatriating new arrivals, but deporting families who have spent generations in Europe. Such arguments risk becoming not just a constant feature of European politics, but its defining theme for years or decades. That is the truly terrifying prospect, and it is likely no coincidence that it has become possible now than many fewer people have lived to experience the lessons of 1939. So that's again the very worrying. It's very worrying, this prospect, because you look at what a lot of these right-wing people are really pushing. It's generally quite frightening and terrifying, because the right, as we've discussed before, the right may be first ones to proclaim their love of freedom of speech, but in reality, they're very often the ones pushing for censorship, particularly of people on the left. You only have to look at the example of ContraPoints recently. She was forced off of Twitter, not by people on the left wing, but people on the right, because she criticised Dave Chappelle. And, it's a dangerous time we are living in. And as people on the left, we need to really start pushing alternative solutions, as we've suggested last video about the land value tax. I think that would be a really good idea to start pushing, something that we should start running for. So, there you go. We'll see you next video. But yeah, definitely a good article, and something that's a good non-European view of the situation that's going on in Europe at the moment.